given this emerging narrative now of great power competition, Samir, from your perspective, I know ORF does a lot of work on the sidelines of major global South forums, including the BRICS. What does the emerging international order look like to you now? Is it one of uncertainty? Is it one of opportunity? How do you see things, and how, from your view, do you look beyond the uncertainty?
Look, the international order is now an orphan. Parents have disowned it. So those who build the order no longer want any ownership over that order. And I think that's the fundamental truth. It's not necessarily a bad thing. So let me go back to your first, when you were opening this conversation, you said, is it a moment of building something new, or is it a moment of destruction? And I think it's both. So let's be honest here. What we've been fearing has happened. And I don't think we should now hold on to any illusion that there's still anything remaining in the order that existed post the big wars up till now. What has really happened is that the country that underwrote that particular order, namely the United States of America, and by the way, this is over the last few administrations, has systematically dismantled every element of that international order. And of course, the current Trump presidency is, which is basically drawing all the attention. But this process has been unfolding, and we have been writing about it. We've been speaking about it. It's not the first time that we've been discussing the demise of the UN at the World Economic Forum. We've been discussing this over the last decade, in some sense. So I think this has been a decadal process, and we are coming to the close of one chapter. And I think what is really now happening is the beginning of something new. So what is happening? What is happening is that the big guys have the guns out and are now asserting their power and influence. So you are seeing visibly that those with the means to exert influence are doing so, using whatever is available at their disposal, firepower, financial power, technology power, whatever is available, it's being now deployed to, in many ways, make new space for themselves or preserve the old space that they had. One of the two. So I think that's happening, and it's happening across regions. It's not about just the US. All with means today are using those means to create a rather partisan space for themselves. I think that's the one truth. The second, what is most visible is the United States and its tariff negotiations with the world. What is not that visible is that the other parts of the world are also talking to themselves. There is also a negotiation happening between other actors, and I think you mentioned so that the middle powers of today are very different to the middle powers of 1945. And I think in 1 year's time, you will suddenly come to realize that the world has a very different hue than what we are thinking it looks like today. Today, it's all Trump or his way or no way. In 1 year's time, you will see there will be a whole mushrooming of alternatives, where you will have these regional and like-minded groups working together on different kind of projects. Could be connectivity, could be climate, could be energy, could be regional finance and development ideas. But others are also talking to themselves. So we are having negotiations en masse. Countries are in many ways finding new ways of clustering up or creating new cohorts of purpose. Companies are doing that as well. Civil societies is also doing that. And the third thing that we are, of course, noticing is that many of the terms and the iconographies of the previous era no longer are valid. Terrorism, for example, someone mentioned terror. You mentioned terror, Prime Minister. Very interesting. It's now very difficult for us to actually label folks with the simplicity of the last century. You don't know who's the head of state and who's the terrorist. You don't know who's going to be your political ally and who's the one you're going to be shooting at in the fields of West Asia. It is a complicated new century with a whole new vocabulary that is underway. I am most worried about three things. I think what really held all of us together in the last 70, 80 years while things were going well was, of course, multilateral institutions. And I think we have literally taken a kitchen sink and gone at them. So I think multilateral institutions and their health today is feeble, to put it mildly. I think they are in the critical care unit, and we need to at least from an emerging country perspective, from an Asian, African, Latin American perspective, we have to preserve some of the units of the UN that did seminal work on development, on gender, on education, on rights and children, and many other aspects. So while the Security Council has been defunct for a while, some of the agencies did really good work and really had credible impact in many of our places, and I hope the middle powers are now willing to loosen their purse strings and are able to fund many of these institutions so that they can continue to provide development. So that's one thing. So I'm worried about the multilateral institutions, and we need new champions and new equity ownership of many of these institutions so that they can continue to deliver. The second is the multinationals. They're dead. With the offboarding of Russia, with the cancellation of political opponents, with the choice of countries you want online and you don't want online, basically you are either an American company or a Chinese company or a Korean company or a Japanese company or an Indian company. It's the end of multinationals. Transnational companies were immune to political swings in national capitals. They continued to connect. The telephones kept ringing even when we were in the midst of the big wars. You could call up the phone and ask for a ceasefire. When you cut off people in the digital world and you cancel them through all digital communications, you have actually walked back on what kept the world connected in the past. So the point I'm trying to say is that multinationals played a role of connecting the world, of moderating the extremities of politics. They are no longer actors. They are now political instruments and what has really happened in that famous dinner in the White House is what Xi Jinping did to his capitalists. That is exactly what happened in Washington DC, that you don't have a transnational multinational class anymore. You have national enterprises, American enterprises serving American interests. And the final point, academia, education, big connector. I mean, look at the way the African students in UK and Paris and the US, both the coasts and elsewhere, were instrumental in ensuring that as countries rose, they were able to have a same spectrum of thinking, of development, of leadership, of progress, right? Because the base was common. Now, when you target universities, when you target students, when you target the movement of human beings, the way that they are being, you're destroying the last glue of globalization. Now, if all of us are going to be living in our own tribal conclaves or enclaves, you will necessarily see the end of the requirement of any body such as the one that we have in the city.